Under the same moon, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World for the weekly legal review with criminal defense attorney Calvin Johnson. This week has been quite explosive with so much new news. In fact, we've had the Epstein files partially released as of Friday night. We have so much happened in Venezuela. Also, I just finished up 3 weeks of the hearing of Luigi Mangione sitting in the courtroom each day. So much to talk about, but tonight we're privileged to have with us a criminal defense attorney to help us understand the news from the perspective of the law. Let's welcome in criminal defense attorney Calvin Johnson. Calvin, how are you?
Man, how's everything going, Mel? Man, I'm here, man. I'm in the flesh, ready to roll, ready to talk about Luigi. What's been going on in America lately? There's a lot to talk about this week.
So, could you help us understand what's happening with the Epstein files and why they did not reach the deadline to release all the files?
Well, a lot of it is saying they're trying to say that they didn't have time to redact them properly, and they're going to release them in waves. But it was my understanding that the congressional act that they made told them that they had to release all of them, and they've only released part of them. And then, in addition to that, there was one file with, I think Trump and Epstein or a young girl in the picture. And one day when they released them, the picture was there. And then somebody went back and tried to download that particular file, realized that that particular number file no longer existed. And then that picture of Trump in those Epstein files was also removed.
Wow. So what do you think is happening here? Do you think that there's something they're trying to hide, or you think this is just protocol?
I think it's something they're trying to hide. And I think that honestly, when you have somebody that's been told to release some files, but their boss is threatening to fire them, then they're not going to release those files, because at the end of the day, what they have seen is that anytime, wrongly or rightly, that somebody gets fired and Trump is the king who's doing it, nobody stops him from doing it. The courts won't stop them. The agency heads won't stop them. Congress won't stop them from firing him, from firing people. And so you have a very, very difficult situation. They've been told to release these files. So you got people that in the Department of Justice that may want to comply with that, but comply with that at the risk of losing their job. That's the harsh part.
As you know, I attended Donald Trump's trial in New York City where he received 34 felonies. Todd Blanche actually represented him in that action. Is it odd that he's also a key ingredient, one of the top tier individuals in the Department of Justice?
It actually is, with the way Trump, that the way he conducts business, it doesn't surprise me. It's a favor for a favor. People do what they do. They want to go ahead and scratch each other's back. And so when you do Trump a favor, Trump does you a favor.
Okay, so do you think people are concerned about Bill Clinton as much as they're concerned about Donald Trump being in the files?
Absolutely not. I think you see Bill there, and I think honestly, when you look at Bill and his situation, Bill isn't currently the president, number one. Number two, there was that Monica Lewinsky thing. So seeing Bill around some younger women, wrong or right, does not really really surprise a lot of people. But when I'm Trump and I'm saying I have not, Epstein was a bad guy, he wasn't my friend, he wasn't this, he wasn't that. When I make all these anti-Epstein statements, and then all of a sudden I'm in a bunch of pictures smiling. There's a photo of Trump condom in those files. It's just not a good look for President Trump.
In one of the photos, when you look at Epstein's desk as though he's sitting in front of it, The drawer is slightly open. You can see photos, two photos of Trump right in the drawer, and then there's photos also on top of the desk. Is this just a low key friend, or is this a major friend, you think?
Man, it looks like that they were pretty close, or at one point they were pretty close friends, and it looks like they dealt with each other a lot. And see, that's the concern I have with this situation. When you look at the pictures, you look at the number of pictures that they were in there together, you wonder about Trump and him being around younger women, just some of the things that he'd done and said in the past. And then it seemed like for the longest that they were really trying to avoid releasing these files. It seems like a bunch of pressure was put on Mike Johnson to keep these files from coming out. And it seems like they came out anyway. And it seems like Trump was playing a part in making sure that these things didn't come out. And so that's why everybody is concerned about him over Bill Clinton.
Quite a few individuals in the media are saying that they broke the law by not putting out the files. Would you second that or no?
I think they are breaking the law. Congress basically said, hey, put those files out. Those files are to be released. They didn't say partial release. They said all the files needed to be released and whatever redactions need to be done, which means the Department of Justice should have made sure if they needed to redact those files that they worked overtime to make that happen. And they have not done that. In addition to that, some of the files are disappearing, the ones that were released. So I think they are actually disobeying the law, and I think they're breaking the law right now. If Congress makes the law, and the executive branch doesn't get to break it, and the judicial branch doesn't get to break it. And so that's what it is. The law's for everybody, not just for the public, but for the people who are supposed to take out their duties. And right now, they're not taking out their duty to release these files.
I want to get your viewpoint on Todd Blanche's explanation as to why all the files were not put out.
Deadline for the DOJ to make the Epstein files after the president signed a law requiring those to be released. So in these files, are we going to learn any new information about Epstein and people that may have been associated?
No, I can't hear it.
So yes, so today.
Okay, so you can't hear it at all? Not sure why. Let's see here. Give me 1 second.
I couldn't hear it.
Let me try one thing here.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all?
I can't hear you.
All right. So can you hear me now?
You lost sound.
Oh. So you can't hear me at all?
Can't hear you.
Okay, let's see. Just pause for 1 second. Not sure why. Still no sound. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, not sure why it's not playing. I'm gonna make one more attempt to play the video. Okay, just give me 1 second here.
Okay.
Is the 30 days and I expect that we're going to release several 100,000 documents today, and those documents will come in all different forms, photographs and other materials associated with all of the investigations into Mr. Epstein.
Well, all right. So
talk about his explanation. What is he trying to say?
Okay, can you hear me now though?
I can hear you now.
Okay, so basically he's saying that they didn't put out the files. Basically the same explanation that you gave, that there are some individuals that they don't want their faces to be shown, but they also had 30 days to release these files, and they also had so many attorneys, hundreds of attorneys working on it. What do you think?
I think it's BS. They knew that these things needed to be released. They had enough time to be able to get the attorneys in and go over all of the files and make sure that they got redacted properly. When you know this is going to be one of the most important times in America to make sure that they pass this law specifically to make sure that these files are released and you don't get it done on time, that's on you. And the number of files that got released were not enough. They should have released all of them, or most of them should have been done. And this is only a small amount of them. I think there's many more to be released. And they should have put themselves in a position to comply with what Congress wanted them to do. I think that excuse is BS. They should hire enough lawyers and they should hire enough support staff to be able to go over that stuff.
So should we expect Congress to do something about this, or do you think they'll let it lie under the rug?
I think they'll let it lie under the rug because of who's in there. The Republicans control everything. I think the Democrats can make a lot of complaints about it and they can kick up a lot of dust about it, but I don't think the Republicans are going to do anything. I think most of them have their own fish to fry. I think they're more concerned about their reelections. And so the current Congress as it is constructed, I don't think that they're going to do anything. They should do something, but I don't think that they're going to do it.
Okay, Lord says it shows how many Democrats shut down the government and now redacted all the contents.
It shows how many Democrats shut down the government and now redacted all the contents. And see, this is the thing that I get into with when we do our show and when we talk to people, right? They make it a partisan thing. It's not a partisan thing. A Republican Congress under a Republican president, under a Republican House of Representatives and Senate, made some rules about releasing some documents. It didn't happen. You can't blame the Democrats when all three of the houses are controlled by the Republicans. That's one of the reasons why we do this show. It's not about partisanship. It's about, hey, man, listen, the rules said A and B and C. Did A, B, and C happen? I don't care about the rest of it. It's that simple. Do what the law says do. And if you're not doing it, you're in violation of it, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or an independent. That's just what it is.
Some people feel like maybe it's not as much about Donald Trump being in the files as much as his wife. What do you think about people who constantly say that in the chat?
His wife very well could be in the files. People close to him could be very well be in the files. You already see Steve Bannon is in there a lot. You see pictures of Steve Bannon in hotels, rooms, sitting in desks, talking to Jeffrey Epstein. I think it's not just about Trump. I think it's about his wife potentially and a lot of people that are close to him.
Okay, so what do you think we should expect going forward as far as in the near future in regards to the Epstein files? You think people should just give up on it?
No, I don't think people should give up on it, but I don't think that we're going to see him like we need to see him because I think people are afraid of Trump. Even the people that are in positions doing the job that they're supposed to do, they're afraid that they're going to be fired or they're going to be attacked. So that's what it is. And so that's why it's very, very, very disappointing that we're not getting to see what's in there.
Okay, Rick Young has a message there. You want to check it out on the screen?
Mm-hmm. The files are 70 redacted. So it matters because they were told to release the files. That's what they were told to do. They need to do them. Whether we think it matters or not is something that is irrelevant at this point. When you are told to release files and it's against the law to hold on to them and not release them, then you release them. All of this about, oh, does it matter? Is it a Democrat or a Republican or independent who's you gaining from it? That's ridiculous to me. At the end of the day, release the damn files. If it matters, then we'll see. If it doesn't matter, let's see if it matters or not. If it doesn't matter, show us the files.
Okay, Sandra says basically the Republicans may do something about it because the mainstream media and alternative media podcasts are putting it out there.
They might be forced to. And the only way I think that they might be forced to do something is because they know the midterms are coming. And if you put enough pressure on them in the midterms, they might hold Trump's feet to the fire because I think a lot of them are becoming extremely jumpy about their reelection chances. And that's the one thing that might save them. The one thing that might save them doing something is the fact that they don't want to lose their positions. And so they're going to appear to go hard.
Okay, now let me ask you a question as a criminal defense attorney. The fact that Epstein had over $1 billion in wire transfers, I've seen people go down for way less transfers. Why do you think they can't figure this out with such transactions?
I think there's a lot of powerful people involved. I think it'll hurt some people that are currently in power, that were previously in power, that are still powerful people who may not be in government, who may be in business or in other areas. And I think Epstein's spider web is so big and so deep and so vast that if they release all of this stuff and go after him in certain ways, it's going to open up Pandora's box.
Absolutely. So as you look at these files and what happened, do you think it's impressionable to you that Donald Trump and Epstein were friends for such a long time and Donald Trump never saw anything sinister?
And see, that's the thing that scares me. You know, I'm looking at it. They look like they were friends for a while. They're used to doing whatever they want. Look at Epstein. Epstein feels like he can do whatever he wants. Trump feels like he can do whatever he wants, right? So when you see an individual like that that feels like they can do whatever they want, it would really concern me that you're around a bunch of young girls and you feel like you can do whatever you want. And that's kind of the attitude that Epstein and Trump took. And for Epstein and Trump to be around each other so long and to be friends and to be in so many pictures, that would have really concerned me. Not saying that just because you take a picture with somebody, you're in trouble, but knowing Epstein and knowing Trump's and knowing the character traits, that would be very, very troubling for me.
Okay, Lordo says, I think there's a lot of Democrats in the files.
Oh, there may be. But what are the Democrats doing in the file? They're just taking pictures? Or are they doing something else? Or, do they have anything else that they're doing? If there's 20 Democrats that have taken pictures, it's fine. But maybe there's a bunch of pictures of Trump and Epstein's desk and all of this kind of stuff going on. See, that's what I try to say. I try to tell people, I don't care who's in the files, whether Democrats or Republicans. Let's see the damn files. Let's see who's in there.
Yeah. This really kicked off with Elon Musk when he made the announcement he tweeted, or on X rather, he said, Donald Trump is the files. I think it was earlier in the year. And then Pam Bondi said the files were on her desk. Then her and Donald Trump came back and said there are no files. And then they said, well, there are files, but they're Democratic hoax. What do you think is actually going on here? Is there some sort of frenzy?
They're playing games with us, man. And that's what they're doing. That's why I think people are tired of it. When it comes to the Epstein files, we're talking about young girls. We're talking about young girls being abused. We're talking about rich and powerful men around a bunch of young girls being abused. And the public doesn't want to hear all that gobbledygook. They don't want to hear that bait and switch. They don't want to hear the flip a coin kind of language that's coming out of Trump and Bondi's mouth. Hey, release the files. Let's see what's in there and let the public judge.
Chris says they released them, but everything was redacted. Cover it up, blacked out. What do you think?
That's another thing that concerns me. Does some things need to be blacked out? Yeah. But some things may not need to be blacked out. But if you're going to anger the president, if you're going to anger somebody in power or anger some of his friends, I think they're blacking that out too. That's what I don't like about what's happening here. To be going through all of this, I want everybody to use their common sense. If they're going through all of this, blacking stuff out too much, releasing the files late, telling people the files on the desk, telling people there are no files. For you to do that, there has to be something there. People don't do this kind of behavior if nothing's there. There has to be something there. I want everybody to use their common sense, turn the politics off, and realize that they're being hustled. At the end of the day, if they're telling you that they're not there, and all this other stuff and all this iffiness, there has to be something there. Common sense will tell you that.
Okay, Garbage Hater said they should have been released years ago.
Yeah, they should have been.
Absolutely. Okay, Chris Shaw says they can't figure it out. They won't figure it out. They're not going to figure it out because there's too many political people that's involved.
And see, that's the thing. I think there are a lot of powerful people in politics involved, and they do not want to anger anybody. That's the thing that concerns me.
Right. So when you speak about the midterm elections, do you really see that the Republicans can hold on to their seats with all the confusion that's happening right now?
I don't think that they can. I think the economy is tanking. I think some people in the red states are mad. The people in the blue states that did not vote, after seeing some of the craziness that has happened, especially with the Latino vote, the Latinos have been targeted, whether they are immigrants or not immigrants. They've been targeted by ICE. They've been talked down to. They've been snatched up off the street at times. And I don't think that they like the harshness upon which their people are being dealt with. And I think the economy is tanking. I think America as a whole is kind of concerned about some of the dictatorship behavior that's been coming out of the White House and some of the things that they're doing. And so I think that the Republicans will be in trouble at the midterms. I think that they know they're in trouble. That's why people like Marjorie Taylor Greene probably right now has decided, you know what? They're going to get wiped. I'm not going to run right now because I don't want to get wiped. So I'm going to wait one out. And then when they get wiped, then we'll come back. That's what that was signal to me.
Why do you think there's no clear, precise Democrat that's running, leading the party?
I think there's a fight between the old guard and what I would call them corporate Democrats and the progressives. I think there's a huge fight between corporate Democrats and progressives right now. I want to say corporate Democrats, Democrats that are more business aligned, corporately aligned, old school, wait your turn, pay your dues kind of Democrats, as opposed to the progressive Democrats really want stuff done, but they sometimes are too aggressive for their own good. But they do want change, and they're not with the old way of, slapping each other's back or and checking the backroom deal kind of stuff. I don't think that they're down with that as much, and I think there's an inner fight right now in the Democratic Party between those two groups.
Okay, Eric says Epstein was Trump's protege, according to Epstein's aide.
And see, that's the thing that I'm concerned about. When I see that kind of stuff, when I see people speak like that, that will concern me, That really concerns me when you think about it. Just because of Epstein and some of the things that he was doing. I mean, there were some very bad things Mr. Epstein was doing. You really think about it. He really got convicted of Florida and had so much money that they let him do house arrest. He could walk in and out of jail whenever he wanted. Think about that for a minute.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like the old Andy Griffith show where Otis could come and go as he please, right?
Yeah, man, just get Otis the key. He's going to sleep it off and then come out. That's crazy to me.
You think that sounds like a money deal?
Definitely. When you got that kind of money, let's say there's 4 or 5 officers in that station, and let's say you're going to give the police department a few $100,000. And let's say you know that those officers don't make a lot of money. And back then there were not a lot of cameras. And you say, hey, man, listen, loosen up, man. I got 100 racks for you. And $100,000 is nothing to him. And that officer's like, damn, 2-year salary for me. Think about it.
Yeah, we see it happen a lot, especially in corrections, right?
Yeah.
All right. Chris says you don't go to a party and not drink, talking about Donald Trump being around Epstein.
And see, that's the thing. Being around Epstein, that would concern me. And then the amount that he was around Epstein. So it's like, it's one of those things where you can tell he's around Mr. Epstein a lot. Based on the number of pictures, the number of images, you can tell that they shared somewhat of a close relationship.
Right. Why do you think every time when Donald Trump is speaking to the public, he mentions Biden pretty much?
Because that's meat to his red base, right? Biden's the red meat to his base. Biden makes them think about what happened in the previous administration as opposed to what's happening now. Biden takes their mind off what's happening now and makes them think about then.
Right.
Trump knows that.
We keep hearing about Sleepy Joe. One of the videos that I had drummed up to play, there's the photos that he's put outside the White House. And on the plaques, one says that calls him Sleepy Joe, Joe Biden, then Barack Obama. There's some derogatory things said. And also he mentions under Bill Clinton's that he beat Hillary Clinton. What do you think this is about?
I think it's trying to relive the glory of his rallies and trying to go back and make those people be the common enemy. I don't think he likes the lack of positive news about his administration right now. Prices up, job losses are killer. I just heard another company, a huge company, Coca-Cola shut down a plant, and I heard that it's going to be between 8,000 and 10,000 jobs are going to be lost.
Wow,
and so it's a lot of jobs, man. And so that's why I don't think he likes that. I don't think he likes that kind of news. And so therefore he's conducting himself differently when it comes to that kind of stuff. He don't want to talk about that kind of stuff.
The other night we covered on the channel where Donald Trump basically gave a victory lap speech, and he also gave out some money, I think $1,776 to those in the active military. What are your thoughts on that?
Did he actually do that? I'm not for sure.
It's supposed to be coming, yeah. Definitely.
It's supposed to be coming, but once again, that's a stopgap. I mean, $1,700, man, may keep you out of a jam for a month, but the next month you still got the same problems. People want consistent job growth. People want a consistent job where they're earning an extra $1,700 a month and not waiting for the government to give it to them. And
Okay.
that's just not a Republican thing to give out a $1,776 check. I mean, that's why we got to be extremely careful with the president. He's very opportunistic, and he's using these opportunities to take advantage of people, and that's just what he does.
Eric says, why is Trump doing everything on the planet Earth to block the release of the Epstein files?
Because he's probably in them. And he probably be doing some very bad things in them. I'm just telling the truth. People can get mad. People can say what they want to say to me. But I'm just letting you know he's probably in them.
Chris says he thinks that's why Epstein left, is because he probably knows that Donald Trump was involved.
And see, that's the thing. And that's why you got to start thinking about it. Why would somebody be doing all of this bait and switch if something wasn't there? Something got to be there.
Okay. Another video that I had queued up talks about Venezuela. Donald Trump actually came out and said it was because of the oil contracts. They want the oil back, not necessarily drugs. Do you think it's a little bit of both, or do you think it's primarily one or the other?
I think it's the oil contracts. I said that. That's what I was telling you when we said this the other day when we had the show. This is about control and power. He sees an opportunity to take Venezuelan oil to make the money deeper, to help his buddies, his oil, help his oil money to donate to his campaign. They probably told Trump, hey, man, you get us that Venezuelan oil, next time you run, man, we're going to be 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, we give to you to make sure you win. And that's what it's about. He's going to make sure that those who are giving him money, his big oil buddies, he's going to make sure that they get a lot out of Venezuela if they take Venezuela from them.
The Funny Squad says, who cares about who gets hurt as long as telling the truth and nothing else?
That's one thing I say. There may be some Democrats in the file. There may be some Republicans in the file. But hell, I want to know the truth. Put it out there.
Okay. Do you think, as far as the boats go, quite a few Americans are concerned that these boats could be just regular fishers doing their thing? Do you think it's strictly drug activity?
It could be some drug activity, but I think that the level upon which they're doing things, trying to allegedly blow the boats out of the water, and then once those people surrender, they're still shooting at them again. And I think that's a problem. And that's the truth. You know, we got to start thinking about this. They have been accused of continuing, even after those people on the boat surrender and they survive, that you're still firing at them. And that's not something that's supposed to happen.
Tree Cutter says, did you speak up when Biden tried to jail Trump?
What I mean when Biden tried to jail Trump? I don't know if he tried to jail him. I think that Fonnie Willis and some of the other people in New York, based on what happened in Georgia and New York, saw certain things, and they wanted to jail Trump for certain things. I mean, there was definitely some election interference in Georgia, and there's definitely some issues with some things in the way he conducted business in New York. That wasn't Biden. Those were those two governments.
Okay. Tree Cutter says, you're awfully concerned a lot, but there's no girls coming forward about Trump.
Well, you know, I don't know about that. I don't know. There's been some people said stuff in the past. I don't know. I would like to see what's in these files.
You know, Ghislaine Maxwell keeps trying to get out. Do you think there's a way forward for her to be released under a pardon?
I think there is. And I think when Trump realizes, okay, I'm done, I'm not going to run for office anymore, I don't need them anymore, I think he's going to let her loose if he can.
Right. Why do you think a lot of people are concerned? Because when it came to Epstein, the camera outside of his cell wasn't working. He had extra sheets. Two officers just happened to be sleeping at that time. The list goes on and on. Does that make you wonder?
Man, that's too many coincidences, man. When you're talking about Epstein, you're talking about the most famous prisoner in all of the federal government's prisons at that point. For all of those things to go wrong just at the right time, come on now. That's hard for me to stomach. Hard for me to believe.
Right. When Luigi Mangione was locked up in Altoona, Pennsylvania, one of the things the officer says, keep your eyes on him in the cell because we don't want another Epstein. So it's a prominent case, right?
Exactly. So people are going to pay attention to him. They're going to watch him. They're going to watch him like a hawk. They're going to have several officers dedicated to his cell.
Okay. Eric Klein says Democrats prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell and had 3 years ongoing investigation. Trump did nothing. Why didn't Trump prosecute Maxwell?
Once again, I think he's concerned about some of the intertwinings of him and Mr. Epstein. It's just what I think about it.
It's also interesting that she did not get a sweetheart deal that Epstein, I think she felt like she was entitled to it, but she didn't get it. I wonder why.
I think that they wanted her to do certain things, and I think it would have required her to talk about certain people. And I think part of why they're probably letting her do minimum security and light duty at a facility that is low security is because I think that was part of what they told her that they were going to do for her, for keeping her mouth closed. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay, we have quite a few people here. We'd like to ask that you hit the like button, share, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you know when we go live. We have this show weekly on Sunday nights at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Calvin, could you tell everyone who you are and how they can find you?
My name is Attorney Calvin D. Johnson. I can be reached at my website at www.theywon'tletmeout.com. I also can be reached by email at the whole word attorney Calvin D. Johnson at gmail.com. And I can be reached at 214-565-5600. I'm a 24-year, going into my 25th year practicing criminal defense attorney here in Dallas, Texas. I do state, local, and federal criminal defense. I'm involved in the community. I'm a past political candidate here in Dallas. In addition to that, I hold degrees from Howard Payne University, double major in history and political science, and I held a law degree from St. Mary's University School of Law. And here in Dallas, I went to the Law Magnet High School, which is the high school for public services, government, and law. And so most of my life, since I was 13 all the way up until now, I've been involved in law and politics, and I've expanded my knowledge based on what I do for a living in all of those areas.
Okay, thank you very much. Eric says only 1 million jobs lost so far. Good job, Republicans.
And that's the thing. Job loss is really hidden left and right. So like I said, I think one of the coke plants are shutting down. And with the coke plants shutting down, 8,000 to 10,000 jobs are going to be lost. I hear about job losses daily here in America.
Okay, repeatedly in the comments, people are saying that Clinton are in the files. Clinton are in the files.
He may be. But we need to know more. If they just release them all, we can see who's in them and who's not in them. And we can see how much one person is in them more than the other, potentially.
Okay, so getting back to Venezuela, do you think we're in a posture for war?
Venezuela can't fight us. I think other countries would have to help Venezuela, and I think that we need to be careful about how we're treating them, because I think that the other world powers are not going to like the fact that we are doing what we're doing in Venezuela, and a lot of these other countries have interests involved in Venezuela, and I think they're going to protect their interests. So I think that we need to be very careful. This thing can really escalate.
Okay, all right. Eric says some things happen in Iraq.
Certain things happen in Iraq. Say it again.
Same thing happened in Iraq.
Yeah. And I was just closing my eyes thinking about it. I remember the little we got pulled in little by little, then all of a sudden, bam. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, things got worse. There were little skirmishes, and the next thing you know, it's all full-out war. So I think we need to be careful about that.
Okay. Some are saying that Argentina is first, not necessarily America.
Now, I don't think we're going to be bothering Argentina. We got to buy that beef from them. Instead of buying American beef, we got to buy that Argentinian beef, lie to our farmers, and we got to feed it to our Americans. That's what we got to do first. So I doubt if we do anything to Argentina.
Okay. Chris says, is all illegal drug activity referring to Venezuela?
A lot of the activity there could very well be, illegal drug activity. But I think this country is going after them, not for that legal drug activity. We're going after them for that oil.
Okay, so this is the first. Maverick is saying that you're propaganda.
Propaganda. I mean, what do you mean? I mean, at the end of the day, the Epstein files are not being released, and they're supposed to be released. We're attacking Venezuela. The president has admitted that we want their oil and they're not just drugs. You can't make some of this stuff up. It's one of those things where you get some of these people that are so MAGA and so politically touched that they can't believe what their eyes are telling them. They lose their connection to all common sense. It's not propaganda. I mean, it's happening. It is what it is. We're just here to report on it.
Okay, Maverick says you need to get off the Democratic plantation.
Hey, man, I don't know. I mean, what's this? I guess when it comes to Democratic plantation, is one plantation here and one plantation there. The way I look at it, we're going to be on somebody's plantation with the way that we're being treated here in America as African Americans. So on the other side, they want to take us out. So I think we better figure out how to get what we want out of the Democrats, and we need to be careful with the Republicans. That's just where I'm at. I don't think that we should sell our soul to one party. If we're going to vote Democratic, then they need to be assisting us and giving us what we need. And I just think the Republicans, they have elements over there that would concern me in terms of being potentially racist. They have some racist elements on the far right. Not saying that all of them are like that, but there's a group of people in their party that don't like people who look like me and Mel. So that's just the truth. It is what it is.
I can understand being supportive of the president. I often point out things that I think are good or legitimate, but how do you explain not putting out all the files by the deadline this week? That's almost like a stretch now, right?
And see, that's the thing. Some of the things that Trump has done, I'm not against everything he does, man. There's some things like making sure that American citizens' needs are being taken care of before you start giving money away to people who are not citizens. I believe in that. I believe we got to take care of America first. I believe in that. But with that being said, there's certain things that should have happened. Congress passed an act that said let those files out, let those files go. But yet he's still holding on to them, and that's what I have concerns about. Everything he does isn't bad. But I just try to tell people I'm concerned about him when it comes to Epstein because this is not right.
Okay, Eric says does not matter. He's not the president when they're talking about Bill Clinton or Biden.
Bingo. The president has a lot of power right now, and he's using it to hold these files in. That's what he's using it for.
Okay, user makes a good comment, says every Republican president in history has put us through a recession. Every Democratic president in history has gotten us out of a recession and won the Great Depression.
There's a lot to be said for that because when you think about Republican policy, they tax cut the rich. They cut a lot of government programs. The rich seem to not want to reinvest that money into the rest of the country and the rest of the individuals and the rest of our citizens. And it seems like we go on this yo-yo with that. But at the same time, under Biden, things were getting too expensive. And under Trump, it's ballooned even worse. So you got to start thinking about, is it always the Republican or Democratic president that's causing the problems? You have to look at it. But right now, giving huge corporations tax breaks, when you have people like Elon Musk that's going to be worth $1 trillion, people like Bezos that's worth so much money, others that are worth so much money, and then you got people at the bottom starving, that shouldn't be happening. And so that's what I have concerns about.
Okay, user says that basically Bill Clinton took care of the national debt, left us with a $3 billion surplus, and Republicans think he's a bad president.
See, those are some of the things I'll talk about. And a lot of it is because a lot of people view Clinton as first of all, he did do good financially for America. But I think certain demographics felt like that they were not being prioritized over other demographics. And I think that's what they have concerns with and they have problems with.
Okay. Aryan, welcome back to the channel. Nice to have you here. Says, why is the Department of Justice hiding significant parts of the Epstein files?
Man, I just think that Trump is in them a lot. I think there's a lot of important, powerful people in there. I think Bannon is in there. I think Dershowitz may be in there. It looks like there's some kind of connection between him and Alan Dershowitz, who, of course, sides with the president. So I think there's a lot of people in there that's going to hurt if these things get released. That's what I think.
So we had this big discussion the other night about Kamala Harris. Do you think that she could have led us to a better place than Donald Trump had she had the opportunity?
I don't know, but what I do know is that she would be doing a better job of making sure that some of these rules are being followed. She wouldn't be a dictator. I think ICE wouldn't be running rampant in America, snatching citizens up and certain things happening. I don't know if it would have been better, but I think when I say better, I don't know if it would have been different. I think it would have been different, and I do think it would have been better because of the ability of her to really focus on the country. I think that Mr. Trump is more focused on revenge. But with that being said, I wasn't in support of all of the policies that were being pushed, but I think we'd be in a better position because at least we would feel like our democracy is still democracy. Right now, this thing feels like a dictatorship.
Okay, Dwayne Parrott says Trump threatening Venezuela has always been about the oil.
Yep. I think it's always been about the oil. I think it has been. And that's the thing. Trump views this government and views what he does in a lens that says, I'm going to be like Putin. I'm going to be like the other leaders that are dictators. I'm going to be the powerful one that where we go and we take what we want. And if it's some money to be made, we ought to be able to do it. And I think that's his attitude toward everything.
Why do you think they have an issue with being direct with the American people and not just coming forward and saying from the beginning, this is about oil?
I think he knows he can't really do that. That wouldn't go over right with Congress. I think he can try to make it about drugs to sell it to the American people and then make it about money when he goes and starts taking stuff from Venezuela.
Okay, Mule Skinner says biggest consumer of illegal narcotics in the world. Anyone? Yes, it's the United States of America.
It is. She's true. True. Mule Skinner hit it on the nose.
Rick Young says most fentanyl comes out of Mexico and most cocaine comes out of Colombia.
I agree. It's a problem, but there's a lot of fentanyl that comes out of China over to Mexico, and so that's another problem, and that's why this president has been going hard on some of the other countries because he knows some of the ways that this stuff is coming into Mexico is through China, and then it's getting up here. So I think that's why certain things happen. I think there's certain moves and situations he's taken towards these people because of it.
Okay, Eric says, and the Southern Democrats became Republicans is well documented.
I understand what they're saying, but right now, let's talk about what's happening right now. Right now, we got a president that's kind of running wild and doing whatever he wants to do, and we have people that are scared to put him in check. He won't even release the Epstein files, even though this guy's dead and he's a pedophile. Just release the files so the public can see it, so that we can, number one, see it, make sure that we deal with those things in a proper way, and make sure that those things never happen again. But he's not doing that.
Now, in the case of Donald Trump here in New York City, he received 34 felonies. To this day, many people feel like those are fake charges. Why do you think that's the case?
I think they feel like he was targeted because he was no longer in office, and I think they feel like would they be bringing those cases if he had not been president or if he wasn't thinking about running for president again? I think people are considering a lot of that retaliation, especially if you are a Republican. You think it's a retaliation.
Okay, so that's a good point. User says Ronald Reagan 300% inflation, George Bush 400% inflation. In fact, he produced the first black president, Barack Obama, and then Bill Clinton deflation, Obama deflation. What do you think?
And I think things were better on the Clinton Obama for myself and for people who look like me and for the majority of the public as a whole. I just think the Republicans get in there, and I think that they cut the poor people and they give tax breaks to the rich that never trickle down. I think that trickle down economics never works, and I think that they're wedded to that and they want to continue to try to do that. And I don't think it works. And I kind of agree with what he was saying. You know, the economy. Sorry, the economies the economies that are under Clinton and Obama did better.
Okay, very good. Opening says, of course, she wouldn't be a dictator.
And that's the thing that I say. She wouldn't be a dictator. She wouldn't be scaring people and firing people. And I think that she would be definitely a lot better there, 100% better there. And I think that I think that that's where she would be better. I'm still concerned about the border some. That needed to be placed under some kind of control. People just coming over and walking over, that can't continue to happen. But when it comes to democracy and following the rule of the law, I think she would have been better there.
Okay. Maverick says they are not citizens, they are illegal.
And I get that. And that's what I'm saying. Like people walking over here and just being over here, you got to be very, very careful. And my deal with Kamala is, and I tell people like this, I just wish though there had been a primary process that she'd went through. I want her to go through primaries so that she could fight through and become the nominee, not just because the Democratic Party wanted her to be, but because she actually won the votes to become the nominee. And that's the concern I had. But I think she would have been a lot better as president than Trump was, especially when it comes to this dictatorship behavior and this breaking of the law to bend things his direction, despite people like Congress telling him otherwise. I think there she would have been a lot better.
Okay. A lot of people feel like Donald Trump is doing a great job, excellent job, but Dwayne says we definitely wouldn't have had a mess if Kamala had won.
And so this is the kind of concern that I have about that. The stuff that Trump's doing is way out of bounds. I just think that if Kamala would have got elected and she could really deal with that border issue, I think we would be a lot better right now. I was just concerned about her dealing with the border issue because of she's winning. She wants to appease those people that are just walking over here. But outside of that, I think she probably could do a better job of not letting things go haywire. And I fully believe that. And I hope that we take a look at this election of Donald Trump and not make the same mistakes that we made this time last time.
Okay. Candyman says no, we would have another 30 million illegals in our country if Harris became president.
And see, that's the other thing. The border was being overran, and there was just too many people just walking over here, and that couldn't continue. And I'm not against, I'm not anti-immigrant. I don't want to hurt people, but you just can't walk over here and just be a citizen and have the tax dollars start to feed you and do all of this other stuff. I don't think that was going to continue to work. I don't think that was going to continue to be feasible for America. So that's just the only thing I say about that.
Okay. Maverick says dictatorship. He says, evidently, you don't know what it means.
And that's the thing. I mean, dictatorships mean doing whatever you want to do. When Congress tells you to release files, files don't get released. When Congress tells you not to, when a judge tells you not to deport somebody and you deport them anyway, that's what dictatorship means. When you decide to blow up and take away Venezuelan tankers, despite not declaring war on them, that's what a dictator does. When you think that you can do every single thing that you want to do, you want to fire people for making comments about Charlie Kirk, that's what a dictator does. You want to just do whatever you want to do, regardless of what the judges or Congress, anybody else tells you, that's what a dictator does. So if you are asking about, do I know what a dictator is and what he does? That's the kind of behavior of a dictator.
It's no secret that Barack Obama was definitely deporting a lot of people right out of this country. Why would Joe Biden turn around and let so many in?
I just don't know. I think that I think the Hispanic vote was important. I think a lot of them wanted the ability to have more people over here, and I think he turned a blind eye to it. I think he needed to do a better job with that. And I think when you start talking about immigration, the Republicans are now in power. Somebody has to do something to set forth a policy that works for everybody. This shouldn't continue to be happening. We've been going on 8, 9, 10 years talking about illegal immigration and people walking in here. Why isn't that we have Congress, a full House of Congress, on multiple election years and multiple election cycles, and nobody has decided to do anything about immigration? I don't understand that.
Okay. Do you think, as most people do, that it has something to do with voting?
I think it does. I think that you don't want to turn down the Hispanic vote. I think you want to make them feel like that it's okay to be able to deal with them. And I think you want to maintain that Hispanic vote. You want more of them here so that the Democratic Party could potentially have a higher voting base. I think that becomes an issue.
When they asked Kamala what she would do different, she basically emphasized that Joe Biden was doing an okay job. Do you think that's what hurt her?
I think she should have said he's doing an okay job, but I'll do a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. I think she shouldn't have given that answer that she gave. I think that answer hurt her.
Yeah, I think that was a deciding point for a lot of Americans. User says before Ronald Reagan, all the food in the United States used to be organic. Now it's made of plastic.
Well, a lot of people say that food doesn't taste the same anymore and it's too expensive. And so I agree with some of that. I don't know if it's made of plastic, but I think that the way that they're doing food nowadays is a lot different from when we came up.
Okay. Dwayne says Trump is using drugs as an excuse, just like Bush used weapons of mass destruction.
That could be very well true. I think there's a lot of people that would agree with that.
Okay. All right. For the issue of Texas, could we just talk about it since that's your state? What do you think about the fact that Jasmine Crockett is going to run for Senate, perhaps?
I think that she was kind of forced to. You took her out of her district. You redrew the lines in the district. And I think that when it came to African American representation, right, you affected 5 African American districts that were 5 African American safe districts. And I think you had a guy named James Tallarico, who's an Hispanic gentleman, and then you had Colin Allred initially. And I think Jasmine Crockett decided that she was going to run because, number one, you attacked her district, you attacked 5 of the African American districts, and she felt like being one of the big name politicians from Texas, that she should be the one running for that Senate seat to try to change some of the things that are happening in Texas. And she's being very direct about it too as well. Some people don't think that she can do well in the rural areas, and she might not, but she feels like she can do well in the urban areas, and that a lot of us in Texas are tired of being under the thumb of Governor Greg Abbott, aka Hot Wheels. We've had enough of him and him just stepping on us and just doing stuff like the redistricting and taking our representation away. People have to know and understand that in Texas, Texas has the largest amount of African Americans living in a state than any other state in the United States, because they have population centers like Dallas and Houston, which are the 4th and 5th largest metropolitan areas that have large African American populations. And so when you start going after Texas and you start going after congressional seats there and you're redrawing district lines and writing us out of seats, that's why that's happening.
Okay.
That's why she has to run. She can't sit back and trust somebody else to run. She might as well do it herself.
They said she raised more money than anyone else in the Democratic Party, pretty much in Texas and beyond, but the Democrats don't really want to get behind her as much as they should. Why do you think that's the case?
I think she's a progressive. I think they're concerned about how she's going to do in the rural areas. I think that they don't know if she's going to play well with the non-black voters, soccer moms, people in suburban areas. I think that's their concern about her. But I think ultimately, Jasmine is going to try to appeal to those suburban moms, to those other households, and to those other folks and say, hey, look, under Trump right now, you're struggling. The policies of Greg Abbott and Trump and your current representation will continue that. If you want something different, if you want to say you want a choice, if you want a voice, you pick me as opposed to picking the status quo. And I think that's what she's going to attempt to do.
Okay. So Julianne says, have you seen the Trump economy food bank lines? They must be bursting at the seams.
Well, see, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that a lot of farmers are having problems buying equipment. I heard they're losing a lot of money. I heard people are losing their farms. I heard that a lot of the equipment and the seed and feed has become too expensive to continue to do that. And that's the concern that a lot of people in America have, especially even in some of these red states, that things are not going well.
Okay. Stanley says Harris was never presidential material, lacked confidence and ability to be successful.
And see, that's what some people thought. Some people thought that in those interviews that she didn't say enough, that she didn't answer the question. It seems like most of the stuff reverted to her mom being a small business owner and buying her house on her own. It seemed like a lot of the questions reverted to that, but a lot of people wanted to hear more from her. I think a lot of people wanted to know Kamala more. I think in those interviews, she came off a little robotic and scripted. And I think that if she would have let people know her, get to know her a little better, I think she would have did a lot better.
Yeah, I also think it goes back to Joe Biden. If you're in the office with the guy and you know what he's capable of doing and that he could potentially get up there and start stammering all over himself, why would you allow him to get up and do that when he was already pretty much leading in certain polls against Donald Trump? And Biden was the one pushing for this debate more so than Trump. So it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and those are the kind of things, those kind of decisions that were made. It just didn't make any sense. I mean, the Democrats stabbed themselves in the foot. I mean, I don't understand what they were doing. Somebody should have told Biden that this wasn't a good thing for him to run. They should have put him to the side and say, "Hey, man, your day is done. It's time. It's over." You should have went home quick enough so that this lady had an opportunity to run and have her own team and develop her own policies and procedures. And I don't know if she had enough time to do that based on the time that when Biden went on there and did terrible at those debates on the television, that people had those concerns.
Thomas says Trump's economy is starting to get better, especially gas prices.
Gas prices are good, but the job losses and the ability to still afford stuff, food, I think everything else is still too high for me. This is me personal. That's how I feel.
Okay. What do you say about Donald Trump pretty much controlling or having the Department of Justice in his pockets?
I think he does. I mean, I think people are scared to do anything against what he says do. I think when he violates rules and procedures, nobody there is going to say anything that's going to let him do it. And I think that's become a major problem.
Okay, so we're down to our last 3 minutes before we get into Luigi Mangione. I figured we could go really hard at Luigi since this was the final week of it. But one final question in regards to Donald Trump and Epstein. Do you think that if something major came out in regards to the Epstein files, something nefarious, do you think Donald Trump would be impeached?
I don't know if he'd be impeached. I just think right now it would depend on how the Republicans do in the midterms. I think a lot of them are scared they're going to lose. I think if they started to lose their offices, I think that could happen. But I don't know if they would actually impeach him. I think that despite the fact that he may have done something, if he does do something wrong and they see it, I don't think that they would go at him that hard. I think a lot of people over there worship him too much. I don't think they could get a consistent to go after him.
Okay, very good. All right, a couple more comments before we move on to Luigi Mangione. Now, when we move on to Luigi, if you guys have any questions, we're going to do a reset. Feel free to ask questions. Maybe you've seen something on television you want, or on the internet, you want to get some explanation on it. Feel free to ask those questions. All right, let's see. Let's choose. Okay. Thomas says gas wasn't cheap last winter or the 3 winters before that.
Hey, I get it. And gas has went down a little bit, but everything else is still too high. People are still struggling.
Okay, Eric says they gerrymandered her district out of existence. Talking about Jasmine.
And that's the thing. When you do that, the person will decide, there's a bigger office I can run against. And I think that's what happened. And I think when you gerrymander African American people specifically, and then you got a Senate race coming up. We're not just going to trust other people to go in there and get it done. You just cut us. And so one of us has to go do something about it. And I think Jasmine decided that one of us is going to be her.
Okay, very good. So we're going to take a break now for a second and reset here. Take a moment to like share, and subscribe to the channel if you like the material. We do this every week on Sunday. Calvin, if you could take a moment, maybe give them some explanation as to what you're doing down in Texas, that would be great. And then we'll get into Luigi Mangione for the rest of the show.
My name is Attorney Calvin D. Johnson. I'm a criminal defense attorney here in Dallas, Texas. I've been practicing for 24 years. I hold a law degree from St. Mary's University School of Law. I hold a history and political science double major degree from Howard Payne University in Brownwood, Texas, Stingham Yellow Jackets. And I am a graduate of the High School for Public Services, Government and Law here in Dallas, Texas, which means I even went to high school based on government and law. And I've been practicing law at the state, local, and federal level for the last 24 years. Next year will be my 25th year in practice. And I'm a formal city council candidate here in Dallas. So I'm a community person. I also have a nonprofit foundation called the Sarum Foundation. We do community cleanups and we help seniors get their houses and property up to code. So I am involved in the community. I'm involved in law, history, and political science for the majority of my life. And I'm here to provide a lot of expertise when it comes to a lot of the legal cases that come about and a lot of politics that happen in our world.
Okay, very good. So we're going to move on to Luigi Mangione. And right off the cuff, I have a question from Openings. She says, I have Luigi questions. Since you went to the hearings, you got to see a tiny bit of how Luigi reacted. Do you think he'll be able to take insanity as a defense? So I'll start off with the answer for that. As I observed Luigi coming into court, and Calvin, I wanted to go over this with you. So great time. I noticed that when he came into court, he would just go and sit down. But starting off in the trial, he would look back toward the hearing. He would look back toward the audience. But then as time went on, he seemed more disgruntled. He didn't do that as much. And even his fans that sat in the back, you know, they were a little discouraged because they were hoping to look into his eyes. In fact, when we would sit in front of them, they would say, could you move? I want to be able to see his eyes, right? But I did notice that he was very reactive. So at the end of the day, when they'd recuff him, sometimes I guess she would pinch his arm or whatever. He'd fidget a little bit. But also during the last day, his attorneys explained to him and said that he would not be at the next court appearance. They would show up on his behalf. And he kind of swayed to the side like he was agitated. He seems like he's very reactive, very frustrated. He seems like he's not totally all there. So do you think that this would aid in an insanity plea?
I think it's going to be very difficult for him because of the planning that it takes to be able to carry out stalking somebody down and killing them. I think you still could be crazy and do that. But I think it's going to be very, very difficult for them to be able to do that because when you think about it, he really had to plan this extremely well. This was a high level plan to be able to get in to kill that individual. And I think that's the thing, you know. But with that being said, I don't know if he's going to be able to claim insanity. I think it would require a lot more. And I think it also would require some kind of previous condition or previous history of having some mental problems. I know he became obsessed with this guy that was involved in approving health care for people. And there are a lot of people that are not crying a tear because this guy got killed because he made some decisions to probably end folks' lives because the insurance wouldn't pay. And so, with that being said, I think him trying to claim insanity would really require a lot of proof by his defense team. And I don't know if they're going to be able to get there on this one, but it just depends.
Okay, very good. So when the police officers first took the call and they went into McDonald's, he's sitting in the corner. I don't know if you had a chance to see it.
I did.
The fact that they cornered him in right from the beginning, and then as time went on for the next 40 minutes, another 13 officers and all came standing around him. Would you say that he was detained? The officers say no.
Yeah, I mean, any reasonable individual is going to believe he's detained. And I think that's where they're going to have a problem with some of the statements and information they gained from standing there and talking to him is because any reasonable any reasonable guy or girl is going to have 13 officers standing completely around him. Like if you see in my background, if you see 13 officers standing around me, I don't think I can go anywhere. Plus, I'm sitting in the corner. So as I'm sitting in the corner of this glass window and I got 13 officers in front of me, I'm gonna feel like I'm being detained. I'm gonna feel like I'm in custody almost. And I think a reasonable person would think that. So I think that's where they're gonna have a little bit of a problem. Now, with that being said, I don't think that's gonna get the entire case thrown out. But I think it may limit some of the information that they gained there if they didn't read him some Miranda rights.
So right from the beginning, the officers felt like once they saw his face, they had him remove or lower his medical mask. They felt like he was the New York shooter.
Mm-hmm.
The officer mentioned to Luigi right from the beginning that he was under suspicion. And then he said to Luigi, McDonald's reported you basically for being here too long, sitting in the dining area. Luigi grabbed his receipt and showed that he had only been there 40 minutes. And then the officer again told him, this is the 6th time in the last week that we've been here for someone sitting in the dining area too long. That was determined to be a lie. They kept lying to him a number of 6 or 7 times. Is that normal?
They can lie to you during interrogation. They can lie to you. They can almost, like they say, tickle the wire. Tickle the wire would be go and say some stuff that's going to make you react, going to make you say some things, going to make you think one way when it's another. They are allowed in America, and America is one of the countries that allow you to be lied to during interrogations. They can do that. They can take information they have, switch it up, tell you 90% of it, leave 10% out, try to fool you. They're allowed to do that during interrogations.
Okay. Opening says, why does the state case even matter when there's a Fed case? And will the state suppression hearing have any bearing on the federal in terms of evidence being suppressed?
It could. It could because it depends on what the state and the feds are charging them with. Similar crimes is definitely going to have a bearing. Even if it wasn't similar crimes, it's going to have a bearing because Miranda applies at the state and the federal level for the most part. I mean, you have to read somebody their rights if they feel like they're being detained. And I don't think that they did that with him. And I definitely think he was being detained with that amount of officers around him. So what people have to understand, and some people will say, well, that get the case thrown out. No, it may not. But as defense attorneys, you want to eliminate as much evidence that's adverse to your client as possible if those rights were being violated. So when you see something like that, you want to go ahead and try to get that evidence thrown out.
Luigi had a backpack that was sitting on the floor right from the beginning, obviously. When they called the lieutenant to come over to McDonald's, it seemed that after he arrived, that's when those 2 officers started to get more concerned about the backpack on the floor and went and stood by it and blocked it off and so forth. It wasn't something that they observed from the beginning, but they're trying to argue that this backpack was the biggest point of contention.
Well, it could be because if they got a backpack, the backpack could have something in it. It could have a weapon in it. It could have a bomb in it. It could have anything in it. And so I think people will be concerned about that.
Now, as far as searching the backpack without a warrant, they said that according to the state of Pennsylvania, they have something called incident to arrest. And so if you're being arrested, they have the right to search whatever is under your control.
They do. And I can explain it to you. Basically, they have a right to search incident arrest because they got to make sure that they're safe. They got to make sure if that backpack is going to go with them, that it's safe. And they can do an inventory search, which means if you give me your backpack and you got $1,000 and 10 gold rings in there, I need to know what's in the backpack. So when I give you a backpack back, it's $1,000 and 10 gold rings in there. So with that being said, I think that they're going to be able to do a search incident of the arrest. And I think that would probably stand up. But once again, they're going to contend that what was the probable cause. They even question him. They're going to contend that he was being detained. He's going to that he wasn't being detained. He's going to say he was. But with that being said, if it's a search incident, the arrest, typically a lot of states and most states, and I think Pennsylvania is one of them, you're going to be allowed to search that person's belongings because you're going to want to make sure that, number one, that if that piece of equipment or that item is going with you, A, that it's safe, B, that the person gets back what they gave you. So there's also an ability to have an inventory search of that stuff. So with that search incident arrest, then sometimes that information will be able to get in, and those facts will stay in his case, and he won't be able to get it suppressed.
Okay, so we know a murder happened in New York City with Brian Thompson on the streets of New York on December the 4th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Luigi's sitting there eating his breakfast, minding his business. He resembles that individual that allegedly shot Brian Thompson in the streets of New York. Does that give them a right on face value to approach him and ask for his ID and harass him?
They can have reasonable suspicion that's him, and if he meets the, if you look at the picture and you look at him and it looks like him, they can go and start asking him questions. And then they can start talking to him. And if he looks more like him and more people are saying, hey, this might be the guy, he really resembles it, as reasonable suspicion allows them to be able to approach him and start that investigatory questioning of him. But they probably need to read his Miranda rights early just to make sure. But with that being said, they can go up and ask him questions if he resembles.
Okay, so they approach him, they ask him what's his name. He says his name is, sounds like he says to me, Lazario, whatever the last name was, Rodriguez, something like that.
Mhm.
But then when he gave the card, right, it says Romy, it's a different name, right? I forget what the names are.
Yeah.
But at any rate, under cross-examination and throughout the hearing, it actually came out that saying his false name was a bigger felony than actually giving the card.
Yeah, it can be failure to identify because you're lying about who you are. You could be using somebody else's identifying information. And so sometimes in some states, that's a bigger problem. Sometimes using somebody else identifying information that you know about it can be a bigger problem. That can be a felony when you're being asked who you are and you're taking somebody else's personal information, playing like it's you. Sometimes in certain states, that could be a bigger felony for you.
Okay, so that happened right off the jump. And basically, he said he did not want to say anything. Okay. They went on asking him questions even after that and did not Mirandize him until another 20 some minutes down the line. Is that a problem enough to have these items suppressed or
Sometimes
potentially?
it can be. If he said he had wanted a lawyer, instead of just saying he don't want to ask any more questions, is one thing. But when you say you want a lawyer, once you invoke your right to counsel, they got to stop asking you questions. So even though he didn't want to answer any more questions, they can continue to ask him. But the minute you say lawyer, then they got to get you a lawyer. They got to quit asking you questions. That's why when you watch shows like The First 48, defense attorneys like myself, we're literally yelling at the television saying, just say you lawyer, say you want an attorney, say you want a lawyer, say you want legal counsel. We're literally yelling at the television saying that, hey, get a lawyer. We want a lawyer.
Okay, so being that Fox, who was one of the officers, I'd say he was 3 or 4 in the on the line of command and dealing with Luigi, he started asking him questions like, "Why did you give a fake ID and so forth?"
They can do that.
Another officer says, "I think we need to Mirandize him." Fox starts rattling off his rights,
Mhm.
but he gets it wrong. That came out under cross examination from Karen Agnifilo. Does that make a difference?
It does make a difference. You want to make sure that if you're reading somebody your rights, that you get them right because they're going to rely on you to tell them what their rights are. And if you get that wrong, that could be a problem. And so that could be a problem. That's why, because you don't want to misrepresent somebody's rights and positions when you're asking them questions. So that's why that could be a problem, and that's why some of the stuff may get suppressed. You didn't read him his rights on time, and you got it wrong when you did. That's a big concern. That's why they've trained you to do it. Somebody said, Calvin, what about his backpack? Was it legal for them to confiscate his backpack with no warrant? Yes, it is. Sometimes if they're going to arrest you once you give the fake name, and they're going to arrest you, they're going to take you into custody. They're going to be able to confiscate that backpack because it's your backpack. They're going to be able to look in there. So that's why you got to be careful when you identify yourself. And a lot of these states are making you identify yourself when you're being asked by law enforcement.
Okay, Eric says reasonable suspicion, question mark.
Reason suspicion is like, let's say they got a photo of the guy who killed the guy, and you look just like him. The cops get to walk up on you and start asking you questions. So they're going to ask you how long you've been there. What are you doing here? They're going to ask you your name. And when I ask you your name, if you lie about it, then that's going to give them more reasons for suspicion. And that's why at that point, that's going to give them probable cause to continue to question you because you're lying. So those are the little things that happen when you don't do what you're supposed to do, and when you have things like reasonable suspicion turning into probable cause.
So let's say, for instance, the judge come back and suppresses items from this hearing. How or what bearing would it have with the federal case?
They could make them anything that they found, anything they found in the backpack, any way he answered the questions up into them, they could throw out. But the government can still make their case with the other stuff, with the video and the fact that he looks like the guy. They could still make a case with that. And I would imagine that they went back and tracked him from place to place to get them there. So the government can go back and still get them, but they will have to do a little bit more to do so.
Okay. When it comes to the whole issue about the healthcare system and why people are so disgruntled and even the public is getting behind him, does that make a difference in this case?
It can make a difference in terms of your jury pool, because jury, and somebody said jury nullification. There are a lot of people, and let's have this conversation. There are a lot of people that hate insurance companies, especially when it comes to medical care and medical insurance, and the fact that a lot of these insurance companies had astronomical profits while denying people services that they needed to be able to stay alive. There are a lot of people that could care less about these damn insurance companies. And you have a lot of people in America that feel that way. That's why you got Luigi fangirls. You got a lot Luigi fandom. You got a lot of people saying that's what they get because they let my uncle die, they let my grandmother die, and they let me not get care that I needed just to make a profit. And then what they would do is they would intentionally try to make you fight to get services that they know you couldn't fight to get. And by the time you need them, you'd be dead. And so those are the type things where people wonder about jury nullification and how much is it the fact that this guy was a healthcare company CEO, is that going to affect the jury pool? It very well could, but with that being said, it's not supposed to. But don't be surprised. There are a lot of people out here that don't like insurance companies and do not like the fact that people like these healthcare CEOs were making all this money while denying care to regular Americans who needed it to be able to live.
Okay. Gold Digger says, Mel, was it a McDonald's employee that called the police about Luigi being in the establishment or a customer? I believe the customers saw his eyebrows, and that's how they identified him because he did have on a beanie hat and he had on a medical mask. And they went to the manager, and the manager called the police, and they actually have the call, the 911 call. And she's explaining how she thinks it could be him, but the customers are way more concerned. They're anxious about it. So that's why they sent over the officer. In fact, the responding officer, he was sarcastic because he wouldn't believe that such a big, high profile criminal would be in their little small town of 40 to 50,000 people.
And see, that's the thing you got to worry about, right, y'all? You got something like that happening, and a lot of people are afraid in a restaurant like that. 'Cause you have to think about it. Even though Luigi has a fandom, he just allegedly assassinated somebody. So you got somebody that could be in there potentially with a weapon. So people are going to be concerned about who is in there. So that's something you always got to be concerned about as well.
Okay, Mark says Obamacare destroyed healthcare.
Asked a lot of people in red states. A lot of people in red states right now, the only way they got insurance is because of Obamacare. And right now, the Republican Party literally is fighting to be able to vote against their own speaker so that people can have that same Obamacare that they said destroyed healthcare. So that's what people are thinking about. I mean, what was there before Obamacare? There was nothing. So a lot of people didn't have insurance at all. So when you think about it, there are a lot of people right now in red states right now, and even these Republicans are trying to fight right now to extend those healthcare credits for 3 years. So if you want to make comments, but partisan comments here ain't going to work. Like, we know our stuff, so we're going to call it out.
There are two major issues with the Luigi case I want to go over with you in our last 10 minutes. Number one is that there was a 2-hour video that had not even been released in court that came out a week ago. The police officers gave it straight to the media. And Karen Agnifilo, his attorney, was so upset the next morning, because she's like, this is going to muddy the waters for my client. But the judge basically said, oh, it is what it is. And also you can release this other video too. But what are your thoughts about the police department just throwing the video out there straight away to the media?
I think what they're trying to do is set the tone for the case. They want to show that literally he is the one who did it. They want to build a strong case. They want to use social media, the media itself, and public opinion to make sure that they understand the strength of their case. And I think that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make their case strong.
Okay, could you address openings or the question that's on the table?
Could you take, in my question about appealing after jury nullification, I assume the government would appeal if that happens in federal, because how successful is it on appeal? Well, that's a very tough one. When I say jury nullification, if they don't believe that the state has met their burden, then a jury can just say not guilty. I mean, if a jury says that they don't believe the state met its burden, they can say it's not guilty. Even though we may see it as plain as day, a jury can still decide to go in and say, hey, not guilty. I had a situation where at a case here at the state level where I'm gonna be honest with you, that jury nullification probably happened because my teacher was accused of snatching up some kid, but the kid was very disrespectful. And then they tried to dress the kid up like he was an angel, and he wasn't. And that jury came back with a not guilty because they felt like that gentleman probably may have snatched him up, but he needed to be snatched up. So I don't think I don't think the government would be successful if they appealed that. I think they could try to do something else, but once you lose, you lose. So I think they would have to move on.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for answering that question. So here's another big issue from this hearing I want to get your opinion of. When the New York City detective came to Altoona, Pennsylvania to meet with Luigi Mangione, in New York, when it comes to recording, it's a one-party approval state, right? Consent state, right? But Pennsylvania is a two-party consent state. So that officer did not realize, the detective did not realize that when he went to Pennsylvania. So he recorded Luigi video recording, so forth, and did not get his approval. And so that's what came out in court, and I think ultimately was suppressed.
Yes.
But why didn't, I think the detective tried to put it on the prosecutor instead of just figuring it out for himself. Why do you think the detective didn't know any better?
If he's a New York detective going down to Pennsylvania, the prosecutor probably should have told him what the rules were. And because a detective, even though they're supposed to know the law, you're talking about going to a whole other state. That prosecutor probably should have told them, hey man, I don't know how they do it in New York, but in Pennsylvania, you got to get the party's consent. And so that's probably why he tried to put it off on the prosecutor. But with that being said, the law is the law. If you don't got consent, you don't have consent, then they can definitely suppress that evidence, suppress that evidence they got based on that interrogation when they didn't tell Luigi they was being recorded.
Okay, now getting to his backpack, this will be my last question. The backpack was on the table at this point. Luigi, when they were asking him about it, he looks at it. They were like, is there something we need to be concerned about? And he looked at it in a way where they felt like it made him more suspicious, right? So the officer that went to check it out, female officer Wasser, she had already started putting her gloves on even before that. So on the cross-examination, Karen Agnifilo was like, you had already intended on checking the bag. Now, her reason for wanting to check the bag is because previously there was an officer dealing with two drug dealers that bought two bombs in backpacks or bags back to the precinct. So she's like, oh, we don't want that to happen again. Okay, so this is why she wants to search the bags. Okay, now the big point of contention with this is that she didn't put on a bomb cover all. She didn't clear this customer sitting around the corner. She didn't say, get out of the building. They didn't clear out McDonald's. Customers are still walking to the bathroom. They didn't call the bomb squad. So that's what really fell apart under cross-examination. What do you think?
I think she should have said that there was a potential to have to search their bag as well. I put my gloves on. She should have said the word bomb. She should have just said just in case we had to take him into custody, just in case he was going to go to jail, I need to be able to search the bag. I would have said something like, even as an officer, we had an issue with fentanyl. People know that if people have drugs in a bag, if you touch a bag that's laced with fentanyl, you could die. So we didn't know what he had in his bag. I would put my gloves on just to make sure that something like that didn't happen. I would have used that excuse as opposed to a bomb. She could have used a better route to answer that question. If I was a detective, that's what I would have done.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Stella, we're supposed to say explosive instead of the B word. I'm so sorry. I forgot.
Yes.
Okay, so AI Smart City says Obamacare is undefeated. It's the illegal immigrants and gender affirming surgeries coverage that is problematic.
And I get people what they're saying about that kind of stuff. I'm not really worried about that as much. I understand that when illegal immigrant care is a problem because they're not citizens and they're getting all this health care. Gender affirming surgeries, I don't know how much that plays into it all. I think the immigrant will play into it a lot more. But with that being said, I just think the major issue isn't really that. It's that these health insurance companies are very greedy and they're very profitable and they're not helping people. And I think that's the major problem.
Okay, Gold Digger wrote you a comment.
Calvin, can you give some clarity as to why the police didn't clear out the McDonald's establishment for the safety if they thought there was a bomb threat in Luigi's backpack? And see, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that they probably thought there was a bomb threat there. Like I said, I would have answered that question that way. Oh, that I wouldn't have explosive. I'm sorry, y'all. We got to be careful. So we'll beep that out. But I wouldn't have been concerned that there was a explosive in there. I wouldn't have answered it that way. I would have said, I'm putting the gloves on or I'm clearing. See, that's what I'm saying. You wouldn't have even had to clear the area out if you just thought that maybe they had drugs in there, like fentanyl or something like that. Saying that there was an explosive in there is not something that I would have said as a detective. They needed to be prepped better. So if I'm a prosecutor prepping them, I don't let them say that.
Okay, so as you know, I attended Sean Diddy Combs' trial every day. I sat in the courtroom, right? One of the big things when the trial was closing down to the verdict and the jury deliberated, the juror that was a scientist, he came back within 2 hours and they had a message to jury saying that this particular juror, number, let's say 54, says he refuses to follow the judge's instructions. And you see what happened with Diddy. The juror kind of swayed, I think, the entire jury to a favorable outcome because of what he thought about Diddy's case. Didn't matter what was presented, right? So in the case of Luigi Mangione, the fact that the average American may not understand that police officers can lie to you, they can create a ruse, and we learned from Officer Fry, the secondary officer, that he learned that in Indiana while he was in police school. Do you think under cross-examination, especially with someone of Karen Agnifalo's caliber, that the jury's going to see that the officers are lying and not truthful? Do you think that could taint the air?
I would definitely use that to my advantage if for Luigi. I would definitely use that. I don't know how much it's going to sway that jury because I think they watch a lot of television. They got shows like a First 48 where they go in a lot of folks and trick them. I think that a lot of people, even though they may not know, they do understand that officers can say they have a little bit more or a little bit less information to get somebody to confess to something. But there is something to be said for not being honest with people when you're talking to them. And if they're sympathetic to Luigi, that these officers were not being honest with them, that could cause a problem for the prosecution.
Okay, thank you very much. We reached our time openings. Just so you know, I will be having some of the Luigi supporters on the channel. We will have some at 9 o'clock tonight in the comments section, so you could probably try to figure out who that might be. But at any rate, at 9 o'clock tonight, I'm interviewing someone that has been at court as well. So you can tune back in for that if you want to learn more about the Luigi trial. Calvin, could you tell us some closing remarks as we head out of here?
Well, I'll tell you this, people had a question about what if Kamala would have been better president than Trump. I think she would have been. I want to clear that up, number one. I think that she would follow the rule of law. I think that we wouldn't have ICE running the streets like crazy. My concern with her would be immigration and her not dealing with the immigration properly like she needs to. That's that on that one. When it comes to Luigi Mangione, I think that the defense team is doing a great job trying to keep out as much as they can, but it gave up a number of great questions and concerns about when you do an interrogation, when you are detaining someone, what police officers can and can't do. And that's why we do the show. We want people to understand by watching our show if you can gain information of what happens if you're in that particular situation. Number three, when it comes to President Trump and these Epstein files, hey, he needs to follow the law, man. He needs to get with his Department of Justice, and they need to release these damn files. Enough of this double talk about there being files, there's not files, putting big files on the desk, and when there's not files. To me, you're doing too much for there not to be something in there. Release these files so the American public can know if you were involved with Epstein at a higher level than we know. And if you haven't been, then release the files so we can see that that's not the case. It's not about politics. People were hurt with the Epstein files. This is a huge story, and we need to make sure what's in those files, and that needs to be shared with the American public.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who participated tonight, who showed up for us. We really do appreciate it. We'll see you back at 9 o'clock tonight for a show just about Luigi Mangione, but also next week at the same time, 6:30 p.m., right, Calvin?
Yeah, we're going to move it up so people can get to us, and then they can get to bed after watching us, but they can get that great information before they turn in for their Sunday nights, before they get ready for work Monday. Tune in, Weekly Legal Review with Calvin Johnson and Mel Smith, Watching the World 777. We want to see you again. We want to grow this show. We want to be a place where you can come talk about what's actually happening without a slant, political slant. We just want the facts. You want to ask legal questions. You want to give opinions on what we think is happening out here. Me and Mel are going to shoot it straight. He's going to ask the tough questions, and I'm going to provide the tough answers. And we're going to continue to do this. We appreciate you coming out.
Different voices, but the same song. Loving a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the flame remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.